everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of L&D Next Rewired Leadership Tales, exclusively curated by the Economic Times HR World in association with LinkedIn. Today, maintaining a multi-generational workforce clearly means that organizations need to provide community-based cross-generational learning for the development of each generation, including the baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z. As more and more L&D leaders invest in creating learning experiences for their multi-generational workforce, social and community-based learning will shine brighter and brighter. Please welcome the dynamic duo joining this conversation today with me, Ajay Soni, Chief Learning and Leadership Development Officer, Aditya Birla Group, and Sameer Agarwal, India Head, Learning and Engagement, LinkedIn. And Ajay, we'll begin the chat with you first. Developing a multi-generational workforce is not a new phenomenon. So why has it become so important today? And how can learning experiences be designed in a way that caters to the varied needs of different generations?
Okay, so let me answer in two parts. So why is it become important today? I think three reasons. Multiple generations have always been in workforce. However, aspirations of different generations were either similar or were not voiced. Now, with growing prosperity, availability of much wider options, and aspirations are getting clearly expressed by people, especially the younger ones. Second, as I see, rapidly changing social construct has meant that aspirations are varied even across the young people. For example, millennials and Generation Y aspirations are very different. Third, I think COVID over the last 2 years has made people ask the question, why the hell am I doing what I'm doing? And therefore, their aspirations have changed very rapidly. Their expectations from organizations have changed very rapidly. So coming to how should we design the learning experiences to cater to this? I think the more diverse a team we have in the learning programs, the better it is. And at ABG, I'll give you 3 examples of what we do. Number one, we've institutioned something called Leader Teach Leader, where a senior leader comes and talks about an area of his or her passion to organization at large. So there are hundreds and thousands of people who come and listen for 3 to 4 hours to a leader talk about a passionate subject for him or her. And everybody learns from that. Everybody engages with the leader. Second, knowledge integration platform. So mid-management we call as core. We bring the experts in mid-management, the core of our organization, and they come together and share their perspective, learn together, and again in front of hundreds and thousands of people. So these are panels, let's say on supply chain or digital mindset or mindfulness. And so knowledge integration platform becomes a place where the knowledge integrates for diverse, businesses and diverse geographies of ABG Group. And lastly, we have pro-zone projects. So you, I, or anybody in my organization can actually publicize a project that I want to do on a very strategic area. And different people from different businesses can actually opt for those projects. They come together from different functions, different businesses, do those projects, learn in the process through this coming together, as well as the leader who's proposed that project. So I just thought I'll share those experiences.
Very intuitive. Thank you for that, Ajay. And Sameer, now it just brings me to you that LinkedIn is quite uniquely positioned and has a view of both the worlds, the world of employers as well as the employees. So would you like to share with us some insights into this predominant shift from traditional learning to a new age learning?
Sure. And I think shift is the right word. There definitely is a shift that we're seeing in the way people learn. And it really is a reflection of what's happening in our lives, right? The way we live our lives today has shifted. Think about how we make a payment to a chai wala, for example, or how we shop, all this e-commerce element, or how we even communicate on social media. So there definitely is a shift in the way we are living our lives, and learning is no exception. Now, of course, we've been talking about all these multiple generations, and my view is that whichever generation you come from doesn't really matter. What matters is what motivations and what aspirations you have by learning. And as long as companies are taking care of that, the learning consumption as such doesn't really change. So learning is shifting, but really keeping the aspirations and motivations of your learner in mind will make sure that you're doing a good job with it.
I think those trends are really exemplary. Thank you for sharing that, Samir. And this brings me to the next question. Ajay, I'll begin with you. Social and community-based cross-generational learning is leading the pack in the L&D endeavors today. So how are CLOs incorporating it into their agenda? And probably if you could just highlight a couple of challenges they face while doing so would be great.
I'll give you three examples again on this. At ABG, we have a Gyanodaya virtual campus learning app. Gyanodaya is our physical learning center. So our learning app is called GVC app. And it is powered by artificial intelligence. Now, employees can come here, learn from what stuff lies there, but they can also share knowledge. They can share best practices on this app. There are lots of community channels, and people can come and engage together in that. We have at Gyanodaya, which is our global center for leadership learning, we have about 200 programs we run every year. But none of these programs are 2 or 3 or 5 day programs. All programs here are 6 to 9 month programs. And these are journey programs. And people from diverse 12, 13 diverse businesses, diverse functions come together to these programs, do projects together, learn from each other, and then apply the learning they have in their daily work situations, come back and report. So those are three examples that come to of community learning and diverse learning. How the challenges that we face is that the work is changing very rapidly, and challenges are coming up very fast. So whether it is COVID, which brought in so many challenges, now the war, Ukraine-Russia war, has brought in so many challenges, and so the work situation is rapidly changing. And to be able to engage with people for a length of time for these programs is a challenge. And so we have to have a flexible approach, and therefore catering to the flexibility needs of our people becomes a very important piece. So that is one challenge. The second challenge is the youth and youth wanting to engage on short duration, bite-sized learning, and there are certain things which take skill building or capability building that takes a time, and so dealing with that kind of a challenge is also something we need to do.
Well, Ajay, I think that was a very comprehensive view you gave us. Samir, I'm going to come to you. What are your views on it?
Sure, Saumya. So look, when it comes to these challenges, or I would rather call them opportunities, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. One is, how do you solve for engagement? And the second is, how do you solve for outcomes? Now, when it comes to engagement, it's really all about meeting the learner where she is. So how do you create those learning experiences? Somebody, might want bite-sized learning. Somebody might want, on-demand, mobile-based learning, so on and so forth. So essentially, how do you create those learning experiences? And then it's about the outcomes. And outcomes really are from two different perspectives. There are outcomes that the employer wants. There are outcomes that the employee wants, right? And I'm not saying that they have to be dramatically different, but really understanding these outcomes from both of these perspectives really helps, because from an employee's perspective, it's about how much is my employer investing in my learning and my development, in my career growth, so on and so forth. From an employer's perspective, it's really about addressing those skill gaps, right? So essentially, it's about understanding these outcomes, really triaging the expectations from the employer's perspective as well as the employee's perspective, and then think about how you can create those social community-based learning experiences, which will ultimately solve for engagement.
Well, that was very instructive, Samir. Thank you so much for pointing that out. And let's move to the next part of the conversation. And Ajay, I'm going to begin with you first, and then I'll come to Samir for the opinion. what are some of the stereotypes that we should avoid while creating learning experiences for a multi-generational workforce?
I think first stereotype is that personal leadership programs or programs that need deep reflection cannot be done online. And I think we started with that premise 2 years back, but very quickly we realized that's not true. We can engage our audience as deep as mindfulness and coaching online, and very successfully we were able to do that. And so the possibility of what you can do in the virtual world, both synchronous and asynchronous, is immense. That's one myth or stereotype. Second stereotype is that senior leaders don't like to learn online. In the last year itself, senior leaders have consumed twice the data that they consumed last year on online learning at ABG. It's about getting them what they are requiring, getting that learning to them online. And that's the second step.
That's amazing. Actually, that's really like a revelation for us. Thank you for that, Ajay. Samir, I'm coming to you on this.
Sure. And I think Ajay said it all. It's very, very heartening to hear how, online learning is kind of picking up. And really, if I were to just add on to that, the biggest stereotype to break is how we box learning into, hey, thinking that workplace learning differences are very generational. So a baby boomer needs something else and a millennial needs something else. Sure, their contexts are different. And as long as we can understand their aspirations and their motivations, whether it's digital learning, whether it's instructor-led learning, whether it's a combination of these two, I think that doesn't matter. So the stereotype to bust really is that learning is generational.
That's amazing to know. Thank you for that, Samir. Thank you so much. And this really is a checklist for our viewers today. Also, it's time for the rapid fire. So let's begin with Samir first, actually. Top 3 building blocks of today's multi-generational learning experiences.
Sure. So the top 3 blocks, I would say personalization, very, very important to understand the context of the learner and provide those learning experiences. Second, provide community-based learning experiences. Learning is a very social experience. And while people learn from people, they also learn with people. So how is it that you create those communities? And the third thing really is around solving for skill development using insights.
Very comprehensive. Thank you, Samir. Ajay, I would love to learn from you. What are your top 3 building blocks?
Catering to the changing aspirations of people, one. Two, delivering on the expectations of the business. And third, communicating in varied ways to the learner.
That's good to know, Ajay. Thank you. Also, just sharing the next question right here. Answer in one word, what is community-based learning? And Ajay, I'll start with you.
Experiential learning.
It's amazing. Experiential learning is the word. Samir, what would you like to share with the audience?
My word would be effective. Community-based learning is effective because it works.
Oh, that's amazing to know. True that. And that brings me to the last question. In one sentence, what is the role of technology in making social and community-based learning successful? And Samir, I will start with you.
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is that technology makes the learning experiences more scalable. Also reduces biases because human biases can always creep in. Technology can be totally agnostic of that. Also, technology helps making the whole learning process much more convenient for the learners, right? So, you can meet the learner where the learner is. So those would be my top 3 things.
That's good to know, Samir. Thank you. Ajay, I'll come to you. What is your perspective on this?
Technology is the enabler for social and community-based learning.
It is an enabler, and that's exactly how you lead by example. Thank you so much, Ajay and Samir. This definitely brings us to the end of this episode, but it was fantastic being in conversation with the two of you. And yes, for our audience, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with a dynamic duo, because I definitely did, and I'm going to take back a lot of learnings today. And before I wrap up, a favorite quote from my diary: Benjamin Franklin once said, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. So let's vouch to continue learning and keep the journey going. Here's wishing you all a fantastic day ahead. Stay safe and thank you so much.